So I'm always trying to figure out what's going to get a rise, and there was a lot of that in Wasteland 3, whether it was playing, the soundtrack and the biblical hymns over some of the combat. It was the, that first scene, that first conversation where the guy gets his head blown off from a sniper. That was like, normally you feel safe in conversation. So all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, conversations aren't safe.
That was Brian Fargo, the founder of inExile Entertainment and also Interplay, talking about how he likes the design to blow past expectations. What a cool chat.
Yeah, but like not expectations like these are the greatest graphics you ever saw, or like he was kind of bringing it down to a more artistic expectation.
That's right.
Which I think is really cool.
To do the surprising, I guess. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, and like a very but it like kind of breaks the example is he's breaking the fourth curtain. No, he's kind of breaking the fourth wall there, right? Because it's like when you're chatting with someone in a game, right? You're always safe, and I thought that was interesting. Like
yeah,
like breaking it reaches into the player outside of the game type thing. Yeah, it's really. I think that's really also his take. Wait a second, no, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We always do this.
That reminds me of. I've been reading Creativity Inc.
Yeah, you mentioned that
by Ed Catmull. I wrote down a thing that he says in there. That thread you were just talking about reminds me of. This is a quote from the book. Craft is what we are expected to know. Art is the unexpected use of our craft.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that. This has been a thread, and I'm serious because I was thinking about this. I want to say maybe even last night I was thinking about this. I was thinking about, was it last night or the night before? I was thinking about how, well, I was listening to something about AI, and I was watching how they were showing some art and how AI art is and like the way they were describing it's like, yeah, this is what we've been talking about with regards to art and craft. And what I came up with was, what if AI is going to be the ultimate craftsmanship, like the ultimate, but it's not going to be artistic. It's only going to know what exists already. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So the craft is going to be so good.
Is an inventive human characteristic, and AI can carry out the craft portion.
Yeah, you could say something, right? So like you could say a lot with art, like an emoji is art in a way, right? Because it's like when you use a cry emoji for like something that's unbelievably hilarious, but not sad. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like context, and then there's like, do you know what I'm saying? There's like symbolism. There's zeitgeist, right? So like the spirit of the age. Are
you saying you don't think an AI can be like ironic or sarcastic?
I'm saying,
when an AI is sarcastic, that's not cool.
It's not like Siri when you say, I don't like you, I don't care, or something like that. No, I mean more like the AI couldn't come up with it unless it already existed. And I think that's what creativity is, humans that reach into the darkness of what exists and they create new things. Like I never would have thought of like, hey, like during a chat in a game where you're like chatting and then there's a sniper, like this idea that like you're not safe during like, and he explained like, so he came up with that and he thought that would be interesting. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think the AI would have come up with that. Yeah. No, I know what you're saying.
I don't think ever. I think creativity is a human. It'll be the illusion of creativity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it'll look like creativity.
I kind of hope.
It won't be real.
I hope so. I mean, I hope creativity is our domain.
Well, it can only do what it knows, right?
I mean, I guess that's really what these AI models, they all like learn patterns. And so they just give you patterns that are derived from patterns that it's seen. So I guess in theory, you're right. They're not going to invent new patterns, but I don't know if like our AI models are going to, I'm sure they will improve and change and get more sophisticated and will start to look like they're inventing things.
But they're not. It's like random numbers. I was listening to this guy give a talk And he was talking about how there's no such thing as random numbers. And he was explaining that you could buy these books. So he bought these books in like the 60s or something, or 50s. And he bought this book of random numbers because there's no such thing as a random number. Have you heard about this? I'm probably not explaining it that well. I mean, people are cringing.
You haven't explained anything yet, really. But
well, there's no random
go
number.
ahead. I'm curious.
Like when you
okay.
a random number generator on a computer, is it really a random number? Does it really select a random number?
Well, they call the random number generator, when you look at the reference books about like, what function you call and what it produces, they do refer to it as a pseudo random number.
Yeah.
generator.
See, it's the illusion of randomness.
Yeah.
So there's like all this math to lift it up.
Was the book a listing of actually randomly generated numbers generated by some human picking some random number kind of thing? Or
I think the book has the numbers that you buy and you can like plug them in to use as like random generation or something. I can't remember.
Okay.
He was explaining it to it, and like all I took up from it was there's no such thing as a random number. And it just blew my mind to think that there is no such thing as a random number. It made me think of AI.
I think that would make a great podcast episode just on its own. Just what is a random number?
You're right. And comparing that to creativity and AI coming up with being creative, because that would be a random number. Do you know what I mean? It would not be, you know what I'm saying? It'd just be a bunch of random numbers that it's coming up with. Anyways.
Okay. Well, on that note, I hope you enjoy our conversation with Brian Fargo. Brian has seen it all, done it all, been around for quite a long time. And it's just such an impressive gamography and background. So I hope you enjoy the conversation.
I enjoyed it. I took a lot from it. I hope you do too.
Yeah.
It's really good.
A totally cool guy too. So here you go.
Leveling up your game dev career but not sure where to start?
Maybe you're trying to break into the industry, looking to connect with other people who are making games.
Consider joining the International Game Developers Association, the IGDA, the world's largest nonprofit, member-driven professional association serving all individuals who create games.
I was in the IGDA in Chicago, met a lot of people. Great way to network.
The IGDA exists to support and empower game developers around the world in achieving fulfilling and sustainable careers.
Discounts,
educational and advocacy-based resources,
mentorship,
and solidarity across 160-plus chapters.
To join the IGDA, visit igda.org/membership and use the code IGDA 4th Curtain 15, no spaces there,
to get 15% off 1- and 2-year memberships, as well as a student membership.
Joining the IGDA is a great move for your career, and as a nonprofit supporting everyone making games, it's a great move for the whole community. Join today. Welcome to the show, friends. Today we have an absolute legend with us, Brian Fargo. Brian is the founder of both Interplay Productions and inExile Entertainment. Interplay being an early video game developer and publisher responsible for hits like Bard's Tale, Wasteland, Battle Chess, Brian.
Classic.
You know, like, oh my gosh, what an original!
You stopped in the '80s. You really just the '80s part.
Oh no, I'm still going. Right. I'm still going. There was a Descent, Baldur's Gate,
Fallout, maybe.
Yes, and I think Interplay. I very much remember Interplay doing an IPO, and I can't remember how many video game publishers were public back in the day, but it wasn't as common as it is today. So that must have been quite a ride. And then in 2002, and correct me if I get any of the dates wrong, or any of the facts wrong for that matter, started inExile, which clever name. I'm sure there's a story behind that too.
Yeah.
Wasteland 2, Bard's Tale 4, which I think both of those you did oversubscribed Kickstarters for, which I would love to hear about too. And then acquired by Microsoft in 2018, which we're both, I guess, alumni of the Bought by Microsoft Club. Brian, it's so great to see you.
Nice to see you too. I'm good. I'm actually, in many ways, I'm enjoying myself more than I have in a long time. I mean, you could appreciate it. I mean, you've had companies where I've described it like when you're the CEO, okay, there's a spreadsheet that shows you when you're out of business. And so, it might be 12 months away, it might be 18, but frankly, it's rare that you have a year's payroll, in the bank, as you know. So a year would be a stretch. But never, whatever the date is, you see it, and you can't wait till then. You have to start now. And so there's this constant kind of running and panic and this gun at your
Yes.
head. And I would come into the office and I would see people laughing and having coffee, and having a great time. Right. And I used to think one day, I hope I could be like them, or I walk in without a care in the world in that way. And so it only took like nearly 40 years, but now, I can put all of my energies into the creative aspects of this business, which is what I love. And it's been kind of funny when I jump into meetings, and there's this, kind of like, oh my God, why is, he's in the meeting. What does it mean? People, and which I understand. I mean, if Phil Spencer wanted to randomly jump in my meetings, I might think, what's going on. But I didn't get in this business to be a CEO or run a public company or do OpEx or spreadsheets. I'm a designer, I'm a programmer. This is what I do. And so it takes a certain getting used to that I'm throwing myself into meetings, which is perfectly normal for me, but it's offsetting for people that don't know me yet.
I can see
And when
that.
work from
Yeah.
home, I used to walk around all day and talk to people and chat. And so there'd be like things we'd talk about that weren't about the product, and now they're not. And so it makes it, more tense. So I'm always working hard at kind of trying to break down those barriers. So anyway, rambled a bit on that answer, but I thought I'd share all that.
I could totally relate to that, though. Good for you. Congratulations that you now have a job. You know what I mean? It's like, is this your first job? Like, you've been a founder and an operator of businesses, like with the clock ticking, like as you describe. I could totally
I
relate.
told Matt
Is
Booty,
this
I
your
said,
first,
congratulations, you're my first boss.
That's hilarious. Aaron, you were going to ask something. Sorry. I
Oh,
stepped
it's
over
all
you.
good. I was wondering, are you working from home now, or are you doing a hybrid?
We're still pretty much work from home. I do go in from time to time. So do some of our people, but most are still. And there's some people starting to go back more. And I do miss it, because when I go in, like all this riffing takes place in conversation that you just don't get over Teams. You can't have side conversations and all that. So being in the creative world, it's been rough, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna, fight the rage against the machine here, but I do like, when we are together, because we get a lot done. But for now, would still work from home. Yes.
Since you brought it up, I'm curious, what's the closest you ever got, like in that runway, Like 12 months is like, oh, it's 12 months. Cool. You ever get down to like, something's got to happen tomorrow? Fingers crossed. Come on, baby. Come on.
He's talking about salary.
Yeah. I'm talking about cash flow. That's what I'm talking
I've
about.
had, what is it? I forget those events, whatever. I've had like 5 to 6, like the comet is about to hit the earth. And if something doesn't go well, we're out of business. And I've had that 5 or 6 times. I had that when we became a publisher with Battle Chess. If that hadn't worked, we were done, because I had put all of our own money into it. When we self-published, so that was it. So now we don't have our own sales force. We moved away from Activision or Mediagenic at the time, and we had Castles was our game, and that was a tough one, because Activision wasn't paying us for what we shipped them, okay, which was rough, and retail wanted to return what we never got paid for. So we had a double whammy, and that brought us down.
Yeah.
Castles went #1, saved the company. Going public, we'd ran up a lot of debt. It came down to the last guy. I literally sitting home in my underwear. I'd gone to New York. I'd been on the road for 4 weeks. They said, if this guy doesn't come through as a lead, we're done, which meant we were done for. And I had to do my presentation jumping around. They couldn't see me, And then I just went and worked out and waited and got a yes. Otherwise, we were done for there. And then probably the Kickstarter was another one. I mean, and I'm probably missing one. That it just like that was a Hail Mary pass for us. I mean, we had gone, we were up to like 70 people, and gone down to 15. Up and down. And,
wow.
So no, plenty of near-death events that thank God.
Well, I think that's it is actually pretty inspiring to me to hear that answer, because I mean that happens. This business is tough, It's sort of like it's hit or miss, and to know that you've had so many close calls and figured out a way to make it through, and that should be fuel for the young kids today getting started, knowing that there is a way, to get through. A lot of it's just being persistent, figuring out how to find a solution.
Yeah, you just have to always be kind of thinking outside the box that way and ready for it. And the worst part, and you could appreciate, is like if you do ship a game and it doesn't work, I mean, in 48 hours, and I now know my next year to year and a half is going to be awful. Like everybody else, they're still at the copy machine having a good time. But like I know, like, okay, I saw the numbers, it didn't work. This is going to be like, I know, right? I've been there. And you're just sitting with that knowledge, and you got to go and pick yourself up the next day and start hitting at it with whatever different plan B, C, D, E, F, G you got.
That's right. All right. Well, so if we go back to the beginning when Interplay was getting started, or even before that, like what was growing up for you like? Did you have a computer growing up? Did you grow up in sort of the Apple II sort of days?
I mean, it started before. I was like a lot of people that, I had the Magnavox Odyssey with the, the Mylar sheet you put on your thing and the.
You and Tim Schafer. Have you talked to Tim about the Odyssey? He's got a whole room full of that stuff.
Oh God, yeah. That was so funny. It was so crude, but you didn't know. What did I know? I loved it. And then the Atari VCS, but it was all magic. Like how I didn't understand. And then thank God my parents had the foresight and financial ability to get me an Apple II. I mean, and that was like, and I was in high school on the PDP-11, screwing around, or 10, whichever one it was, after school. So, but the Apple II, like, okay, like that's when all the lights went on as to like, okay, I get how these things are made. And so that's when I started to, teach myself how to program and, start looking at things analytically a little bit to like, from a game design perspective. It seemed random, but, when you're a kid, they just came out and they were great and you didn't know why, but it turns out there's some psychology, that goes into putting these things together. So yeah, definitely Apple II days. But heavily interested in books, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fantasy books and Heavy Metal magazine, more movies than I could even keep track of. Back when I was young, you would go see two movies. I mean, it was like two movies would come out at a time, not one, So when they went to one, that was like alien to me. Yeah, I was lucky that everything kind of pointed, Dungeons and Dragons, all my interests kind of coming together to support being in this business.
Oh, that's cool. Did you play D&D growing up?
No, not anymore. No, I play computer games, and I need to some which I spend too much time with, and then other I just need to play it, understand what their innovations are, and
But when you were a kid, were you playing?
Oh
D&D
yeah, all the time. Are you kidding me? All the time, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of D&D. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Did you have a group? Like a group, like a
yeah, we had a
group?
regular group we would play with. Michael Cranford was one of them. He's the guy that did a lot, the programming and much of the work on Bardsdale, and nobody else from the industry. But yeah, we had a regular group. I used to two parts I remember thinking about later was like I felt like some of it like God, maybe I could be a lawyer from this, because I felt like there was like, oh, you cast that spell? Oh, well, I'm in the cone of silence by 10 feet. Yeah, but my ring allows it to extend. It was all like these technical, we thought all these like laws in each other, to try to breach or make whatever we wanted to happen. It was very funny, as we go through the books, like you're citing old cases, and so.
Yeah.
That used to crack me up. And then I was always like into more of like the psychological parts of what I could get people to do to each other or with each other. You know, like if I was a DM, like I'd have like okay, there was like a whole there's like like they were like not very high level. There was like vampires down there, and like three guys go down. So I take them aside. I'm like, look, this isn't really happening, but we're gonna roll, okay, and we're gonna see if your friends help you, okay, and jump down. And so we're fake it, and they're just getting killed. Nothing's working, and the other two are like, we're not going down there. And meanwhile, like none of it's happening. And of course, at the end they're pissed off that they wouldn't help them. So like that kind of campaigns used to I would always lean in on to see what kind of reactions I could get from people.
That's hilarious.
Are you more of a designer than a programmer, like internally?
Yes. Yeah. I'm always thinking about design. I'm always thinking about what moves people, psychologically speaking, more than anything, and to me that's the supportive of design, whether you're building an Angry Birds or you're building a very deep role-playing game with a lot of variables. I'm always, what's moving me. I also read a lot of books. Like if I'm reading a book and I'm just feeling dead, then it's probably not good. Same if I'm reading my material, like what's getting a reaction from someone. I read somewhere once, which I agree with, like I've gotten more of a human emotional reaction out of a 30-second YouTube video than I have out of an entire book. And so like, why? What happened? What's going on there? And so that part of it is like, why do people resonate towards things, and that psychological part? That's the thing that interests me the most. Subverting expectations, surprising you, kind of keeping you so you're being entertained. Like these days with any new show, I watch a lot of shows. They got like 10 minutes or I'm bounced. Like if they cannot even, or a comedian, if I can't laugh one time in the first 10 minutes, chances are it's not going to take off from there. There's always an exception, but by and large, same thing with games. So I'm always trying to figure out what's going to get a rise, and there was a lot of that in Wasteland 3, whether it was playing, the soundtrack and the biblical hymns over some of the combat. It was the, that first scene, that first conversation where the guy gets his head blown off from a sniper. That was like, normally you feel safe in conversation. So all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, conversations aren't safe. And so that's jarring, and so that's the lens for which I'm always trying to find things to keep people sort of on edge and entertained and never dull. Like a good book doesn't worry about the end. It worries about how to get you to just turn the page. And so my focus is, how do we keep making you turn the page?
I love that. Sort of like what did you say? Subverting expectations?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So you grew up, had an Apple II, taught yourself how to program, were a self-described student of early games. Did you go to college? I should know this. I read your Wikipedia. I don't think it mentioned college.
Well, it's not like Wikipedia always nails everything anyway, but
Agreed, sir.
So actually, I was a big track champ, nationally ranked in the decathlon, and I was training for the Olympics for the decathlon. I mean, that was my.
What?
Okay, I knew that.
That's not on the wiki page.
No, I think when I met you, I think when I was at Disney, and that was one of the things that either you told me or I learned about you, was that track was a big part of your history. And I'm an avid runner, but just not competitive in any way, shape, or form. So this is amazing and fascinating. So you trained for the Olympics.
No, I loved running. I was the league champ in the 100 and the 200 and the relays and all that, with the CIF, and so I was pretty good. But I was kind of like my life in the industry is like, I was pretty good at a lot of things, but I wasn't like a world-class runner or pole vaulter, but I could do a lot of things really well. And so Bruce Jenner, he was my idol. I mean, he was the man, at the time.
Yeah.
That we So I'm not trying to emphasize that. But
There's I know there's two meanings there, but yes, I know what you mean.
She was my hero at the time, and but anyway, God, I was getting the computer stuff. God, wrestling with it, and then I was starting to see like Daley Thompson and some of the guys that were putting up times in the decathlon that would have placed them in the open 100. Okay, that was never going to happen for me. I mean, I'm realistic, and so. I've got, who remembers a silver medal winner? Nobody. And so I said, okay. And so I was down at, the reason I was at Saddleback is they had a great track program there. Edwin Moses was working, like champions,
Oh yeah.
And I know, second period, I was sitting there, and I'm like, I don't really want to be in school. And I got up, and the guy there, I go, where are you going? I go, I'm dropping out. He goes, right now? I go, yep. I couldn't sit another minute, and I just went home, and that was it. And right out of the second period, my track coach was very unhappy, but I said, nah, I got to do computers. And then that's when I jumped in.
Wow.
Yes. So hold on.
Where are you going? I'm dropping out. Wait. Yeah. Like right now?
So you didn't go to another school. You went home and just said, I'm doing computers, and then what? And then did you start like?
Yeah.
What was the gap
I dove in. Actually,
Interplay?
my parents made me go to a different college for a year, and then I said, "Oh, please, enough already," So I literally had to walk out. They're like, "You got to go a little bit more." I'm like, "Whatever, what different one?" And then I said, was done with it. I was definitive on what I wanted to do, but I was home and I had my bedroom with my Apple II and my 16K memory card and my 2 diskettes, so I could hand copy the discs by hand, and there was I was an okay programmer, but I was good enough to know when people were much better than me, so that was good. And so all I did was seek out people smarter than I did, and I tried to there was some machine language routine I needed for a recursive fill. I had no money, so all I could do was pester people. So I just pestered them forever until they wrote it, and then I was able to do the rest. And I put out a little graphic adventure game that was, it was okay, but it was like I tried. Went out, I tried, I got beat up, I went through all this stuff. So you just
what was it called?
It was called The Demon's Forge.
First one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's on the wiki. Yeah.
If you just got to do something, right? You can't just talk; you just do it.
Yeah.
Take your arrows, beat, whatever, and then you go to the next one. So that was really my first one. Yeah.
And that was Apple II. And were you actually selling it, like putting it in a Ziploc bag kind of thing?
Yeah. No,
you go.
What I would do, I mean, this was my advanced marketing technique, which I've talked about this before, is that, so I got in a couple of the local stores, no problem. Most of them, they're so cheap. Oh, we'll put on consignment, whatever. Okay. But what I would do is I had enough money to take one single ad out in Soft Talk. That was it. Like I had it was like $2,000, And so I took the ad out, and then I started calling stores around the country, and I would say, "Hey, have you seen that new game in Soft Talk? It looks pretty good." And the store would be like, because it wasn't all changed, and they go, "Yeah, no, that does look pretty good." I go, "Yeah, I'm really interested in buying a copy." And they go, "Well, let us look into it." And I hang up the phone, and then they on the ad was the other phone. I pick up, go Saber Software, and then I would take an order, for it to the store. So that's literally how I got my sales going in the beginning, was just to manufacture demand.
Nowadays, that's called bot farming, I think. Is that what that is? Yeah. So you scale that up with automated AI. Just generates demand for your product that you fulfill.
When you're young and it's you, it's cute. When it's a bunch of bots being turned loose into the world, it's not quite
then it's a felony.
So funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome though. Okay, and so that was basically the origin of what became Interplay.
So I did that for a short while, and then at 19, I had a company buy that company called Boone Software, and they were all Stanford graduates that had money, and they wanted to get in the software business, so they bought my company. Not a lot, enough to pay out the debt. Not like a big liquidity event, okay? And they made me their VP, and then I was like doing everything because they had nothing to do, and so I did that for about a year, and that was kind of crazy, whole stories there. So I quit that and I started Interplay at 20, when I was 20, I should say, in October of '83.
Dude,
Wow.
that company has a great logo, by the way. I love that logo.
The guy sitting at the keyboard, or which one? We had many over there.
No, the cursive one.
No, the very beginning one. I don't know if I have it handy here. If I did, it was actually. You'll have to look it up. It was pretty clever. It was an I and a P and a guy sitting at a keyboard. It was like 2 in 1. So I mean, it looked very 80s,
we'll look
but
it up.
it was.
We'll
I
find
liked it. It was clever. It was clever. So, but yeah, the cursive one was certainly memorable, for sure.
So, what was the first game that you put out as Interplay?
Well, as a publisher, or just as Interplay, you mean? Just the developer or otherwise?
Yeah, as Interplay, because you started as a developer first, right? Before you started publishing.
When you start a company, there's what you have to do, and then there's what you want to do, and they're very different things. And so we did some work for the military, for L'Oreal, to pay the bills. We were doing we were converting product from the Atari VCS to the Commodore 64. They had K-Tel Records, if you remember them, had a division.
Yeah.
So we would just take their utter junk and port it. And so, it was just like random stuff to survive. And then we started doing some adventure games for Activision. That was our first like legit, right? And that was Mind Shadow, and that did pretty well. And then of course Bard's Tale, which I had pitched to Activision since I was already in business with them, and I said, it might take 2 floppies discs, and they said, "Are you fucking crazy? We're not doing 2 floppies." And so they were like pushing Apple to put a cartridge port on the Apple II. That was their big thing. So we just weren't a match, and that's how I ended up with EA, because I had pitched it to them, and they went, "Oh, we love it, nailed it, great. You want to do wizardry on the Commodore 64? Got it." You know what I mean? It was like immediately, they understood. So and what was funny, we were one of the very few companies doing products for both, and they hated each other at the time. So whenever anything would come up, did you say something? I'm like, guys,
wait, are you saying EA and Activision?
Yeah.
EA and Activision hated
they hated each other.
So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Whenever anything would come up, they would like.
Yeah, they call me and go, "Did you say anything?" I'm like, guys, I'm like a kid just working on a game. I have no idea what corporate espionage is going on with you guys. I have no information.
How crazy is it that you're now at a company that just bought Activision?
I know, and bought Blizzard too, funny. Which I used to own a part of Blizzard when they, in the early days. I helped kind of.
Well, so I had heard some bits about. I don't know. Did you know Alan?
Yeah,
Adam,
I know. Since he was a
Blizzard?
kid. I mean, 15 years old. I'd go to his house. We'd play games and stuff. Yeah. But I knew him, and then he went in the military for a while and got back. He goes, "I want to be like Interplay. What do I got to do?" And then I started mentoring him where I could, and feeding them contracts. And he was very grateful. Gave me part of the company, because of that help. And then they passed up the master there, and they just took off. It was amazing what they did. Amazing.
I know, crazy. So, did you actually end up publishing one of their games so it was Blizzard?
Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of their. Lost Vikings, Rock and Roll Racing, RPM Racing. Blackthorn, and then what happened was. Because what I kept saying was, if you guys want to make the real money, you got to be like what I did, which is to finance your own product and your own marketing, and I'll handle the sales force. So instead of I'm making these numbers up, $4 a unit, you'll make 18, whatever the number was. And so he finally said, "You know what? We got a game we're going to do. And let us tell you about it," And he started to tell me about Warcraft 1. And I said, "Well, first, I'd love to hear about it, but second, it doesn't matter what I think. It's whatever you want. You don't need to pitch me. You do your thing now." And but he's like, "Remember Dune? everybody loved Dune as an RTS. It was like the only one. Medieval Dune got it, and so very short version is that I said, great, we're about to sign a contract. And then Davidson said, nope, we're going to buy you, for like 3 or 3.5 million, something like that. And Alan said, we can't sign. We can't sign. And so I said, I talked him out of it going, that's not going to get you guys anywhere. I think you have more potential, splitting up. I know it's a lot of money, but splitting that up with 3 guys, by the time you're done, not that much. And then he doubled it to 7 or close to. And he goes, and I said, well, kind of hard to say no to that. I mean, they own no IP, they had no profit hardly, they're nothing. And so in that, I said, can I at least publish, Warcraft in Europe, since Davidson isn't set up there. So that was the last product that I got to publish of theirs. And then, Davidson lucked into that one, really, because, it wasn't like they, had franchises or whatever. And so, and then they just kept going and going. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and that whole story too, that's a whole like Davidson, and I can't even remember the string. It was like
this is
Universal maybe, and then CUC,
CUC,
and then finally
Ken Williams
Activision.
got pulled into that whole thing, and right.
Yeah.
Ascendant or CUC that was a shame for some people. Some people really got left holding the bag on that one.
A lot of those, I don't even know all the details of that chain of events, but I remember it happening back
I think Ken just wrote a book about it, Williams. You might want to check it out. But he really got, in my mind, he walked away with hundreds of millions, and apparently that didn't happen, So I was really surprised when I saw the facts of it.
So then Interplay starts as developer, and then you decide, I want more control. I want more of the share of the revenue. I'm going to risk more, become a publisher. I could do this as good as these other guys.
Well, I would also add to that we were producing a lot of #1 hits and not making very much money. And so I thought, well, if I'm doing #1 hits and I'm not making a lot, I got nowhere to go but down. And part of that was that, like, we were building games that were, I mean, if you think about that era, like my buddy did Dr. J and Larry Bird go one-on-one by himself, and Archon was 2 people. And a lot of the products at the time were just 1 person, 2 person, and I'm doing Wasteland and it's like 12 people. These big role-playing games are hard. So, it wasn't working for me, and I actually at first said, can I get a higher royalty rate to like, they're like, no, absolutely not, forget it. This was EA. So that's why I went back with Activision. And again, they were excited. It was like reverse. Now they're excited. And so, that's why I became a publisher, really, was to support what our business model was, which is like, hey, why don't we have writers write and musicians do the music? I know it's crazy, but let's like have experts do each individual thing rather than us try to do all of the different disciplines, which is how it was mainly done. So anyway, so that it was more about survival than control at that point. But then of course, once you start doing it, then it become, we all like to do it our way. I mean, we can't help. I mean, it's like, to me, the ultimate is like, am I building the game I want and in the way I want? It's hard to get the two together, right? You could pitch somebody, but then they're going to tell you how to build it, and if you don't build it as per the contract, they could withhold payment. And, I don't need it. It's like a moving target building these games. They never go in the exact order for what we have. But our final product never looks like the original sheet, that we had, right? You feel it out as you go along. But if you're under a contract where people doesn't pay you, then you're having to jump through hoops and not build the product the way you would like to, which is like, what, that's not important anymore. Let's move this forward, whatever. There's a lot of shucking and jiving. And so I appreciate that then, and I especially appreciate it now with Microsoft, because there's no micromanaging at all. They bought us because they trust us, and so I'm thankful for that, and it's something we certainly don't want to lose.
Yeah,
kind of ours to lose, the way I look at it.
No, that sounds like a nice setup. So, what happened after that? I mean, there was like, Was Battle Chess the
Yeah, it was
first
like the
game
first
that you
game there.
self-published? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, I think it was Battle Chess. Yeah, and that was put out on the Amiga first. Big hit. I mean, like 30,000 units on the Amiga, which was amazing. But for $1 million, oh my God, right? And then like every format we put it on, did well. And we did random stuff. And I ended up getting the Star Trek license. I just started like, well, let me back up. It was Battle Chess. I don't remember all the titles, but then it was Castles, which was our first fully published direct to retail. And then after that, it was like I said, Star Trek license was a big deal. Getting that, which originally was like, our first game was the 25th anniversary. So I was like, 25-year-old franchise, boy, very exciting, Brian. And like we're like, no, we love Star Trek, and that worked well for us. I had to jump through a lot of hoops to get that one, and then I was always trying to get the rights to Wasteland back from EA because I kept saying, use it or lose it. Come on, guys, you in there, And they started it, and they did Fountain of Dreams and this and that, and so finally I just said, okay, I give. We'll just do our own post-apoc game, and we looked at, what are the things that made that work? Make multiple solutions to everything, interesting characters. You could say like that ability to save your progress and not have things reset. The world would kind of keep going. There were like tenets that it nailed that we wanted to have with the tactical combat. So we said, okay, we've identified these things, and guess what? We're going to even go like we have like whatever. What was the power armors in both games, and like we pushed them to the max without copyright infringement. It's used enough that if you played Wasteland, you'd be like, hey, I remember power armor, or whatever of the different. There's like 5 or 6 different things. The Temple of the Mushroom Cloud is like it's very similar to, I forget the faction in Fallout, but anyway, so and then we just kept going and going, and we were fortunate at pretty good at picking hits, and then well, stop. I could keep going to the other aspects to that, but anyway, that got the momentum. Let's just put it that way. That you started to see kind of from the early to the mid 90s.
Did your job change a lot then? Were you having to build this growing publishing operation? Because back at Bungie, like we self-published too. We never got to the scale, as an independent that you guys had. But I spent a lot of time doing some of the things that you were talking about, like how like you would sell product into retail, and then they would try to send back unsold inventory that they never even paid for. It's like, this is horrible.
Yeah, the games that you learn. I'll tell you one. Well, the first answer is yes. I was doing everything that I didn't want to do, but that I had to do. And when we hit 500 people and we were a public company, my job was miserable. Okay, I was managing developer relations, the street, just like if anything went wrong, I was the guy that got beat up, and so that that's your job, and so I'd go into meetings where I'd want to be involved with design, but if I leave and don't get a chance to follow up for 90 days, then they could just do whatever they're going to do, which is what happens a lot, but yeah, I remember like the distributors, like they'd say, we want a markdown, on your product in our warehouse. Okay. Cause you don't want to physically take it back, cause that's a big hit and it's expensive shipping it. So instead of paying $30, we're going to say, we're going to take our inventory and you're going to give us $10 per unit credit. So we get effectively about everything for 20, pretty straightforward, right? So, you don't trust them. So you send someone over to physically count the inventory, and that'll get you right. They got this many pieces at $10. We owe them $1 million. Boom, give them a credit for $1 million. Guess what they would do? We have another distributor that would say, hey, we need some markdowns. They'd ship my inventory to him. Okay. They'd ship the inventory around. They knew.
So you'd be giving credits like 3 times for one.
Shady.
Yeah. So now I don't.
That's so shady.
Yeah, but what do I know all these games at 23 years old or what? Like these are old pros, probably from the record days. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, you found yourself learning fast, on the job that for tricks that where do you learn this? But in real life,
Yeah.
I don't know that maybe they teach it in business school somewhere, but you learn about how it really works.
School
And
of
yeah,
Hard
some of the
Knocks.
shady stuff that goes
Yeah.
on. Yeah. And what's funny is when I look at the 90s compared to what I need to know today, child's play. Between streaming and AI and subscription business, and I could go on and on and on, like the stuff that I need to know. I think sometimes like some people will say, I've been in the business for 30 years, 40 years. Completely meaningless to me. What have you been doing the last 3?
There you go.
That's all I want to hear about, right? Because if you're like, I've never heard of Midjourney. What does GPT do? Like if you don't know anything that's going on, like that's not real helpful. That you know a bunch about shipping boxed product in the 90s. Not going to help me a lot here, And so, fortunately, I love tech, so I'm always like diving in. I'm fascinated by it. So that's been helpful for me to survive because I often know I'm on the tip of the spear in terms of whatever is coming and wanting to understand it, how it works, with AI, its ethical implications, its practical, technical, uses, that are not related to copyright or pure ideation for its value, that like there's a lot happening there, and I love it. I mean, I listen to podcasts every night, and I'm fascinated by all of it. So anyway, I don't know how we went down that part of the conversation.
That's an interesting
that's
part.
good.
Like, so
That's good.
It sounds like you're pro AI, and do you look at it as like AI is an amazing tool for me, Brian, to be using to make my games, or do you look at it differently?
Well, I mean, you have to be so careful by saying I'm pro AI because that means different things to different people. Okay,
Good
now
point.
so I don't want to. I want to be careful how I phrase it. It's here to stay. Okay, and there's some wonderful uses for it, and so we do have to be thinking about how we want to use it. I mean, for example, like we only do our products in English ever. We only record the audio. We don't have the budget or the time. Now they got AI that would put it in every language right away. It'll just convert it. Now, well, gosh, that seems pretty good because we would have never done it otherwise. In a bunch of countries that would have never got to ever hear it recorded. Even if we had the budget, we can't put it in 90 voices. We don't have the time, And so I look at that and go, well, that seems pretty cool, Or like, hey, here's AI that will clean up our mocap data without us having to spend people 6 figures going through and doing it. Oh, well, I don't think any of my artists enjoy that. So that's a cool aspect to it. So in that way, it's coming. It's being used. There's some really great way to use it. And yeah, no, we're not going to take something out of Midjourney and pop it in. That's not going to happen, But I do love, like I did a talk recently where, like in the past, we would use Google Images or Pinterest or DeviantArt or whatever. My artist would look at it and be inspired because it's always easier to come up with an idea when you're not looking at just a blank piece of paper. So from that, if I can look at imagery that's not as going to get used, but it gets my mind going, then I think that's a positive thing too, just for communication purposes also. So yes, I see benefit in many ways for it, but I do have to. People are very high alert for it, so that's why I have to answer carefully without giving the wrong impression of what's acceptable.
What about for like the story stuff and NPCs and all that?
Well, okay, so I'm not convinced yet on that, only because I think about where I'm different though. So granted, okay, like I kind of want to just move forward, like through the quest into the end of the product, whatever the vision the creators have. If an NPC is just random, if I could talk to him forever, I personally don't care about that, right? That's not interesting to me. But for some people who want to live in that world, like really like a Skyrim, then I think that maybe is more interested in them. So I think it has to do somewhat with your objective with the game and where I want people spending their time. You know, this isn't the best analogy, but it makes me think of it a little bit. There was a game, I think it was an Activision game, and you guys may remember, where they said you could go in every building in New York City, like the whole all in New York City, you could go inside of. And I thought, well, okay, either you put something like in every single one, in which case I'm not happy because I don't want to go through every building, or you put something in some of them, in which case I'm still unhappy because I don't know which ones to go in. There's millions of them. Or I put nothing in any of them, in which case you say, why bother to put it there? Okay, because that's stupid, all that effort, and then there's nothing inside. So I think about it in that way, right? What am I having the player do? What do I want them doing? And so so somebody may come up with a very clever way for them to talk. Now, we've actually thought of some things, and I don't want to pimp it right now, but where I do see a very specific use to that we can make our role-playing games deeper, and I'm not just stuck with an NPC giving me background lore or just chattering. I think there are some ideas that one of my writers proposed that would actually be great. So it's a nuanced answer, to that question on how it could get used. But I do see ways, but I know the way you were talking about, and I was just sort of like, I question it for now until I hear more use cases. It's also different when you're in games. We tell story games. So if I'm in Minecraft, it's very different, or anything that's generated is a different experience also, in which case I may want to dive in, or they'll put me back on point. I'm having a call, we're having a talk. Hey, but don't worry, I don't forget, I need the ring, Hey, don't forget, I need that ring. And they'll keep bringing it back to the conversation. Like, okay, I get that. And I'm in a world that's generated. I'm a kid, different experience. I'm trying to tell a very narrative story. So how long do I want to hold you up in a conversation, or how much do I want to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to make this abundantly clear. This is kind of spend all the time you want talking about this stuff, has no bearing on anything, right? Don't feel like I need to chase this down to a node end that's never going to stop. Feel free to break out of this anytime. You know what I mean?
I remember all those
are all the things that, that go around in my head.
Those those classic RPG games, you would learn the things the AI would say when they don't have anything left to say. So you would know when you kind of got to the end of the tree. You'd be, okay, all right, I'm done here. Right. It's time to go.
Right. So, yeah. So anyway, like I said, there'll be very clever ways to handle everything I just said. I just like to hear more about it. That's all, because I haven't put a lot of effort into thinking about
Aaron, we were in a meeting earlier today. I don't know if you were still in that meeting when somebody said, "Yeah, we think we should use AI for game AI." like AI has been in games, for a long time, doing.
Oh, I see.
Doing things that we used to call AI, like like the pathfinding and deciding what the AIs will how they'll attack you or whatever. So we're gonna put AI in that.
Well, look, I don't need to tell you. I mean, you're the master of this stuff. Much of our effort is making the AI stupid,
right?
Because
you're not as smart.
We can make it so it never misses a shot. Right. It pops up its head for 1 millisecond, takes a perfect shot, and dies. Piece of cake, So our real effort is making it not too smart and make it believable and fun and strategic and things you can learn from, right? That's the craftsmanship.
Yes.
All right. Well, so Interplay was how long of a run was that for you? That must have been 15, 20 years.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. So I left Interplay after 17 years. Okay. I sold inExile on the 17th year. And then when we moved to a new office, thank you, Microsoft. Ours was embarrassing before. They wouldn't want to be part of the Microsoft look, trust me. And but we did the TIs, we did the and then we have extensions if you want to stay there, and the extensions go up to 17 years. So kind of funny that it was. I didn't even notice that until later.
Okay.
That's funny. So three 17s.
Yeah, that's your chapter length is 17 years. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the story behind starting inExile?
It was time to leave Interplay. Let's put it that way. Okay. Again, that's a whole long. That's a 3-hour podcast. But I very much so I took some time off. Okay, what do I really want to do here? And I would joke. I organized my CD collections. I did all the things that you never got time to do. And after I don't know, 3 months, I thought, okay, I love this business, so I want to get back in. And so I wasn't sure what to call the company, and I think but I wanted to go to E3 and needed a business card. And I saw it went around, and we were just called, Matt Finley joined me from the other company, and we just called it The Workshop, just for lack of a better name, just The Workshop, my name. But my title, I put for fun, Leader-in-Exile, because, of the whole, leaving under the difficulties with the French and all that good stuff. And so it was just a joke, but people were like, oh, that's hilarious. And then by the second day of the show, people were walking up to me and saying, okay, I heard about your business card. You got to give me one. And so I heard that. And I thought, maybe there's something to this at Exile. So that's really where it came about, that I was a leader in exile after I had left Interplay. And it was weird, you are the company, from 20 years old to 37, or 38 roughly, it is you. So when you leave, it's like a weird thing, it's not me anymore, at all. And so it takes some adjusting to, that hey, I'm not a publisher anymore. I'm not doing that. And I got people that used to call me aren't calling me anymore. Now they got nothing to buy, and so got to learn to some of your friends where you're like, oh, not them, so.
It was just the two of you starting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah. And I was fortunate that normally when you start a company, you want to go get financing. They go, okay, well, who do you have, right? And so you got to go to companies and go, hey, will you promise to quit once we get financing? And that's not always as effective because A, it could back to their employer, or B, it's not quite as effective when they're like, well, we don't want to finance a company that doesn't have any talent. You don't have anybody. And so I was lucky that I was able to self-finance for a while and take our time and get, we had the art director, Max, who we'd worked with and we really enjoyed, who worked at Zatrix, and other people who we had worked with, had positive experiences. It got, smart people hire other smart people. It always works that way. So I was self-financing until I had enough people, and then I could go out and pitch. And then we went to Vivendi, and Acclaim. And of course, when we launched, I think Vivendi got sold and Acclaim went bankrupt. So more just great stuff,
So wait, did you actually, was those your first two projects? Was one with Vivendi and one with Acclaim?
Yeah. No, the timing was perfect.
Aaron, you were at Acclaim when they went bankrupt, right?
They locked us out. Yeah,
that was
a lot of people still have dev kits.
I was with Acclaim Europe. I don't know if they were staggered differently timing wise, but I can't remember now at the time. But I was with Acclaim in Europe and Vivendi here in America. I was in
Texas, and I remember that when they shut down, it was like $8 million that went missing or something. They had a meeting with us.
Why am I not? I've been fortunate to be in the business since the beginning, so I know all these characters. I remember I had this one guy's long out of the business. It's not Greg Fishbeck. Nobody knows this guy, but we were doing Swords and Serpents for Acclaim, and they said, "Is there any way you could do this without the MMC1 chip or it was some expensive chip?" I memorized a little bit. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. We said that was part of the specs. And they said, well, listen, if you get rid of it, we'll split the savings with you. Right. I'm like, really? And I knew it was like $1 extra, for this chip. So I went to my guys and said, hey, is there any chance we can do about it? Anyway, so they work. Yeah, we can do it. So I call up Acclaim. I said, hey, good news. Did it. Oh, it's great. I said, okay, well, that's an extra 50 cents for me and 50 for you. They said, we're not paying you 50 cents. That's outrageous. I said, yeah, but that's half. That's half. They said, well, we're not paying you 50 cents. I said, well, okay, fine. Then we'll just leave it in. They said, that is so unethical of you.
Oh God.
So I had to like sell it for a quarter because it just, whatever, let them give them a win, but more, stories from the front line, as I'm being told, I'm the unethical one, for reneging on the deal.
They had a different definition of split.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know. So it's funny now, but yeah, it was like, God darn it. Like, and I'm sure we could have used the money, trust me.
Well, I know you've done a couple of Kickstarters with inExile, and they've been very successful. And I've never done a crowdfunding campaign. I don't know what goes into it, what makes it successful. Why'd you decide to do it? How did you make it successful? It was necessity.
It was a Hail Mary. Yeah, I mean, I was shopping Wasteland for a while. And, in the old days, like by and large, everyone was a publisher of video games. But now people had very distinctive like takes on the market. So one of them might have been like, well, we're more of a service-based company now, or we're billion-dollar franchise only, or we only do licensed product, right? So when you start applying all these filters, you're running out of people to pitch to. You're like running like one or two, as opposed to like before, if you had a game, you go out to 8 people and hopefully get some interest. And so I was getting nowhere. And I said, look at, Fallout 3 is a huge success. I got Jason Anderson, one of the creators of Fallout. I executive produced them both. I mean, it's a good story, at least. And I used to be a publisher. I used to go, nobody pitched me anything as good as this, and so I got nowhere, man, nowhere. And so, it was so frustrating because, the user, every day, we want another, I said, do one like that. And I wanted to do it. And so Tim Schafer launched. And like the next day I said, okay, everybody. And, again, you got to be willing to pivot fast. I said, everybody stop what they're doing. Stop. This is it. This is our chance. And so we went from, I never heard of Kickstarter in my life, to launching 30 days later. And, obviously it was a success. And it was probably one of the highlights of my entire career because it was people appreciating what I had done before and giving me credit for it and trusting me with their money, their hard-earned money up front, that we would deliver. And so I would say it was when we hit the number, it was a bit of an emotional moment for me because it was like, A, I get to make it finally after all these years, and B, these people like trust us, and and it means something. So that was a definite highlight of my entire career in the industry.
That's awesome.
People love that game.
Yeah, well, we gave them what they wanted. I mean, that's the that's the main thing. And I knew that Kickstarter wouldn't last. And when we first started Kickstarter, there was Steam was not wide open. I mean, they wouldn't take everything. And now that changed a lot. I mean, people talk a lot about look at what great board games do, but a lot. People will say Kickstarter doesn't work anymore because too many people didn't deliver. And I honestly don't believe that is why it failed. I believe it's because I heard that people have in their Steam libraries like 30 to 40% of the games they haven't touched yet. So why on earth would you finance a game for which you have a library of 40% you haven't touched? Doesn't make sense. Whereas board games is more fixed. It doesn't have as much of that going on. And then Steam opened the floodgates. So now I have an infinite choice of games, and I got my own library. I think that was it from then on out. There was no way I could survive all that.
So what are you working on now?
You mean which game?
Yeah.
Clockwork Revolution?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the trailer?
I've not seen the trailer.
Oh my God. Aaron, you need to speak with him.
I'll go watch the trailer right now.
Yeah, you'll like it. So I got the guys, and I'd worked with them before that had made Arcanum.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll remember that, which was Chad Moore and Jason Anderson. One was I used to get on Twitter all the time. You should redo Arcanum. You should redo Arcanum all the time. Now I had nothing to do with Arcanum, so it was like the most requested game I had nothing to do with. So I knew there was interest in the category, and I've always liked steampunk. I thought, well, you know what? There hasn't been a steampunk role playing game since Arcanum. Now there's been Dishonored and Bioshock, but I don't put those under like role playing, crunchy, role playing games. Wonderful products, but not exactly role playing by the kind of the way we define it. So I thought, all right, well, I can get these guys to come work, and that'll be exciting. And then I just got really more excited about it. And then we started talking about time travel, and then that really was like, okay. I mean, it hurts my brain from a reactivity perspective, but the idea that I could go back in time and change some stuff and see the ramifications, kind of the ultimate reactivity. And we're just leaning in so hard to make sure it can't be like a parlor trick. It has to be like true reactivity that you're doing, and I'll pick one scene, which I'm not supposed to talk about, but I don't really, whatever. But as an example, my favorite scene so far is, there's this serial killer, and he's like, he's like in a cage, like Hannibal Lecter, and he's nuts, and all his victims are up on the wall. And so you go back in time and, you meet him. But at this point, he's not killed anybody. He hasn't done anything. And so you can kill him, but it feels a little awkward, you feel a little shitty because he doesn't know what's going on. I mean, you know what he's going to become and you don't know why, but all you know is he hasn't done anything at this time. He's like begging for his life. So, you can let him go. You can kill him, or you can kind of like shoot him and then kind of halfway through go, okay, never mind, forget it, right?
And that's how he becomes a serial killer because of you,
No,
right?
no. When you come to the present, he's not a serial killer. He's an advocate for victims' rights, for people who break into homes and shoot people for no reason.
Oh my God.
Right? Like, I love that dark humor, and so that kind of stuff, so whether we're paying it off in a big way, like, okay, now it's now it's run by the crime syndicate, or now it's the church is in charge now, all by what you did, or something like that, which is on a smaller scale, or you went back to the past with a red hat and they're like, oh my God, we love your hat. And you come back and, you started a fad. Everybody loves red hats now, So like it's that stuff I think is highly entertaining.
What kind of game is it? Is it first person or is it?
Yeah. You'll see the trailer. It's good. We showed it at the Microsoft show. It was one of I think the second most anticipated new IP title that they showed.
So
we were
Game
right
Pass.
there with Fable. I mean, it looks
Awesome.
I don't mean it looks. It was great. It was awesome to people dying to know what we were working on all these years, and we were finally able to show it, and it got a great response. So that was great.
That's
great.
fantastic.
This will be on Game Pass then, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if Microsoft owns you, you're on Game Pass. I mean, that's the way it works. Which is cool because if we think about how many people will play that game day one, I mean, it's going to be millions and millions and millions, which is cool. So
That's very cool. Very cool. Okay, Brian, we've kept you over an hour. We kept you for a while. Thank you for spending an afternoon with us.
I got a bunch of people from work coming over tonight. We're all going to watch the new Scorsese film.
Oh,
right on.
I just saw it on the front page.
It's 3 hours and 40 minutes. So.
Yeah, that's what
Do you
they
got
were
an
saying.
intermission planned in the middle?
The dance
Flower Moon. It's
I'm
called
not sure.
Flower Moon. Flower Moon.
But I got to start arranging food for everybody and all that stuff. So yeah.
All right. Well, it's so great to see you. So happy that you've got a job now, so you don't have to listen to that ticking clock. And new game sounds amazing. I'm gonna go watch the trailer right now.
It was fun catching up with you.
Likewise. And we'll see you around.
Nice meeting you, Brian. Cheers.
So cool to catch up with Brian. I didn't realize that his kind of career chapters were 17 years in length. That is coincidentally the same length of time for the major cicada broods in the United States every 17 years. Like these giant
Did you
broods of cicadas that come out of the ground, you know? It's like...
He's a cicada. Dude, 17's a prime, too. He's a prime.
Yeah, it's a great number. I bet
I
bet
really
there's
like
some
the way
numerology about 17. I don't know, but
Oh,
you
there
should
totally
know this,
is.
Aaron.
Of course,
Yeah,
it's not a random number. Dude, you know what?
What?
His take on AI made me very happy. Like, I was like, we could just turn the podcast off now, man, because that was really good. It's the best take I've ever heard, in my opinion. Like, I've heard a lot, and, you know, people get really, they get really romantic with it, like, it's going to do everything. And I think the way he broke it down was, like, very practical. And I felt that way with the art. Like, if you start using the art, you know, the art generation stuff, you quickly find out that you need to be an artist to manage that stuff in any kind of production capacity.
He also said something that I thought was important too. It's like, well, you know, AI can do this or that, technology can do this or that, but do we really want to do this or that? You know?
What do you mean?
think often we get so excited about technology, we can do a thing that we don't think about.
Oh, Jurassic Park style?
Yeah, whether we should.
You packaged it, you labeled it, and you never thought you. Yeah, that line. It would have been cool if you played that sound clip right now. The Malcolm one.
Yeah,
it's true though.
So I agree with you. He had kind of more of a practical view on.
Dude, that's happening right now. He
seems like very enthusiastic about technology. You know, about.
Yeah, he does,
and about AI. Yeah,
it's the same kind of thinking we should apply to chimeras, which is totally happening right now. And that's another podcast. I know I won't derail. But
what?
It's true. You never heard this? Oh, it's crazy.
I've heard the word chimera, but what are you talking about?
Like, it's just because you can, should you? You know? It's one of those. It's a very interesting. Well, going back to what his comment was, he was saying that he wants to tell a story, and a lot of times these things aren't really helping. You know? And like, he really broke down, like, I don't know, like, do you want your AI in your story to be just be like real people, and you want to just stay there, or would you rather it be like a fully scripted? And that's very interesting, because like in games, like we're making a game. Do you want the AI to be able to be a complete living creature, or do you want it to have just 10 lines?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this maybe isn't exactly what he was getting at. Maybe it was. I don't know. But like, these games are getting bigger and bigger and deeper, and the characters and the worlds are richer and richer. And when I hear, oh, this game has 400 hours of play in it, you know, it's one thing if it's like an MMO or whatever, and it's part of your regular thing. But like an RPG where it's like, I'm gonna go and consume the story, and there's a beginning, middle, and end. I don't want 400 hours.
Yeah, neither do I, dude. Well, okay. Well, let's bring it back though. Let's think card game. Okay, there's a card game. We're gonna have a card game now. We're making a card game. One game takes 5 minutes max, maybe 3 minutes. Maybe it's a very short game like Marvel Snap, right? But now imagine that every card is a creature. So you can click on your little card. Your card comes up, and you're like looking at your card, and that card can say, you could talk to it. Like, you could have a conversation with it, you know, like it's like an AI bot, and every single card in your deck now is this. Like,
hey, dude, that's a pretty cool idea. We should do that. Do you got a cool name for that?
But I'm saying, like,
do you have a cool name for that?
Collect the characters. Collect the characters.
So apparently don't. I will.
Creature collectors.
I'll go name it and register the URL.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, where's the line? Or do you want your card to just have one line of flavor? Because that's where it's going to go. So and I bet you it's going to be like keywords, and you could just give it a personality. You know what I mean? You could be like, kind of like a D&D. You could say like, by the way, I asked Alex how he rated me as a D&D character. He said chaotic good.
Yeah.
And what are you then? If I'm chaotic good, what are you? I like to think I'm a pretty orderly guy. What are you again? Neutral good or something?
Sure. That sounds like the most boring. That's the most boring.
The most vanilla
designation. Yeah.
Or what do you, milk toast? But yes, seriously, you know what I'm saying? Like, where do you draw the line with how much you want? It's going to be in everything, you know. Like, you're going to like imagine the buttons now on the interface of your self-driving car. Every button has a personality. The seat has a personality. Like, where do you draw the line? You know what I mean? Everything's alive.
We don't need personality in the car controls. Don't get me started on car UI, man. Oh, it's just so bad. It's so bad.
Oh, and the one you have now. Don't say the car then.
Well, my truck got a really cool update, and I gotta say that's pretty cool. It's like all sorts of cool little like it'll tell me my current elevation, a little compass heading, the temperature of the battery, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
it's like cool. Cockpit readout.
Oh, that's cool. Fine-tuned though, right? Like, when is it too much? No, seriously. Like, what if you just want to ride a skateboard and you just want to go from one end of the street to the other end of the street? Now like the AI is going to be like telling you how fast you're going, telling you, like, it's just too much information.
Too much. You're right.
Too much.
You're right.
So, and he was breaking that down, but he's like, I just want to tell a story, and I'm going to do, like, you know what I'm saying? And it made me think, like, Jurassic Park style, like, just because you can doesn't mean you should, type thing.
That's right.
It's kind of like whenever you're a kid and you're finally old enough to go get your own soda, and your parents let you walk up to the soda machine, and you're like, I want a little bit of Coke, a little bit of Sprite, a little bit of Dr. Pepper, and you just do every single flavor.
Yeah.
And it tastes like garbage.
And it's not good.
It's not good. Yeah.
All right. Well, perfect analogy. I think that wraps it up for today. Thank you for joining us.
Man, what a good talk.
And yes, another week of The Fourth Curtain. And we shall see you next time.
See you next time, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Fourth Curtain Podcast. To get a peek at upcoming episodes or to send in questions to the show, visit our site at thefourthcurtain.com. And be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening.